Thank you, gentlemen. The title of the parashah is Ha'azenu, meaning listen. For a man who is slow of speech and slow of tongue, as it tells us in Exodus 4:10, Moshe sure had a lot to say. The parashah begins with praise to God in contrast to the people, a perverse and crooked generation. After all God has done, people are foolish to turn from Him. That's what Michelle was reading this morning, earlier. The parashah continues with God bringing the people out of the desert and into a good land. God blessed the land, and it produced abundantly. The people grew wealthy and could afford to pursue their lusts, very much like the United States today. God hid His face from them, allowing them to work toward their own destruction. God sent nations to punish them. Deuteronomy 32:21. The verses today are from the American Standard Version with minor modification. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy with those that are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. The latter part of this verse is quoted in Romans 10:19, referring to grafting in the nations to provoke Israel to jealousy. After a time, God will judge the enemies of His people. Indeed, Assyria, who took the northern kingdom, eventually disappeared. Babylon, who took Judah and Benjamin captive, was defeated by the Persians. In the end, God will redeem His people. While the Babylonian exile was an example of this prophecy, the people were once again dispersed when Titus the Roman destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. Now people are returning to the land. Currently, Israel is once again a prosperous but secular nation. And once again, God has blessed the land. Speaking of Israel's prosperity, I was particularly interested in Deuteronomy 32:13. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, and he did eat the increase of the field. And he made him to suck honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock. Even the unlikely places are productive. Bees may be building hives in the rocks, and olive trees grow well in rocky soil, hence honey out of the rock and oil out of flint. But I was curious, what's the difference between flint and oil shale? As it turns out, not much. Flint is a sedimentary rock. Oil shale is a sedimentary rock that happens to contain organic material that turned into oil. Currently, Israeli oil reserves are insufficient to meet their needs. Israel is producing crude oil, but they still import crude oil and coal. More oil reserves are being discovered, but Israel has already discovered vast offshore gas reserves. Israel produces enough gas to meet all of its own needs, plus surplus to export. And what does all this have to do with the price of tea in China? Russia got involved in a war with Ukraine. Putin thought Russia would just walk in and Ukraine would capitulate. As it turns out, the war is ongoing. It is difficult and expensive. Understand, Russian oil is not as lucrative as it once was, as nations are boycotting Russian oil. So China is buying Russian oil at a discount and reselling it at a profit. Funny how dedicated communists embrace capitalism when it benefits them. Europe is supporting Ukraine. Putin is threatening to cut off the gas supply to Europe as winter is coming on. Israel is not yet producing enough gas to supply Europe, but is developing its vast gas reserves. Israel will soon be capable of reducing Europe's dependence on Russian gas. Putin's threat of cutting Europe's gas supply should entice Europe to seek other sources. Meanwhile, Ezekiel has already told us Russia will lead a coalition to attack and plunder Israel. I do not think Russia will want Israeli vegetables, good as they may be. Russia may be interested in Israel oil and gas reserves, along with controlling the sales thereof. Several verses regarding Russia are mentioned. Russia will reluctantly join the coalition. Ezekiel 38:4. I will turn thee about and put hooks into thy jaws. I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed in full armor, a great company with buckler and shield, all of them handling swords. The hooks in the jaws of the Russian ruler indicate he is going reluctantly. Seeking plunder indicates an economic reason for the invasion. As best I could determine from Rabbi Google, Magog, Rosh, Meshech, Tubal, and Gomer refer to different parts of the vast nation of Russia. Togarmah refers to Turkey. Persia is Iran. Cush is Sudan, and Put is Libya. So the coalition appears to be Russia, Turkey, Iran, Sudan, and Libya. The motivation for the nations joining Russia may simply be hatred or perceived retaliation. Israel does not have any friends. In 2021, Iran announced they would have the capability of destroying Israel in 20 years. In 2022, Israel announced Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Would Israel attack Iran to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon? It sounds to me like a military attack would be an option if Israel thought it necessary. If Israel were to attack Iran, Iran would gladly join a coalition to destroy Israel. Iran may even help organize the coalition and pressure Russia to join, hence the reluctance. Once Israel is out of the way, Iran would continue development of a nuclear weapon to use against the United States. This coalition will be well prepared, well supplied, and heavily armed. This is a hard lesson Russia learned in Ukraine. Even though one is expecting a quick, easy victory, one should prepare for potential tough opposition. To this day, Russia is drafting soldiers and trying to get neighboring nations to help with Ukraine. Ezekiel 38:8. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, that is gathered out of many peoples upon the mountains of Israel, which have been a continual waste. But it is brought forth out of the peoples, and they shall dwell securely, all of them. Biblical prophecy is amazing. When one looks at Nostradamus, where he says a man wearing a turban will start a war, I probably could have predicted that myself. Then there's always Confucius, who said, "He who passes gas in church sits in his own pew." Well, that's just how it works. Going back to real prophecy, in the latter years, or not long before Yeshua returns, God will go into a land that is brought back from the sword. In 70 Common Era, Titus the Roman trashed the temple and Jerusalem. The people were driven out by the sword. Since then, they have been gathered out of many nations. Israelis have come in from all over the world. Verse 8 refers to a land which has been a continual waste until the people returned. Israel was a wasteland. Very little grew and very unproductive. Ezekiel 38:11, "And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell securely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither gates nor bars." Verse 11 refers to a land of unwalled villages where the people dwell securely. In the time of Ezekiel, who did that? Who would think of building a city without walls to protect those inside? Ezekiel 38:12, "To take the spoil and to take the prey, to turn thy hand against the waste places that are now inhabited, and against the people that are gathered out of the nations, that have gotten cattle and goods, that dwell in the middle of the earth." Verse 12 gives us Russia's interest in the matter. It seemed to involve coveting and a hatred of Israel, the Jewish people, brought on by a hatred of God. They want to take the spoil and turn their hands against the people that are gathered out of the nations. Ezekiel 38:13, "Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take the spoil? Hast thou assembled thy company to take the prey, to carry away silver and gold, and take away cattle and goods, to take great spoil?" Verse 13 indicates Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, and Sardinia will chide Russia, but not actually help. Sounds very much like the global response to Russia in Ukraine. Some assistance is being provided now, but only after Ukraine provided some indication they might be able to drive Russia out and survive. The battle we are currently speaking of will not last that long. Ezekiel 38:15, "And thou shalt come from thy place out of the uttermost parts of the north, thou and many peoples with thee, all of them riding on horses, a great company and a mighty army." The coalition will attack with overwhelming force. Again, this may be due to a hard lesson learned from Ukraine. Ezekiel 38:16, "And thou shalt come up against my people, Israel, as a cloud to cover the land. It shall come to pass in the latter days that I will bring thee against my land, that the nations may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O God, before their eyes." The force will be so overwhelming, the world watching will just automatically assume the attacking force will prevail. Israel's very survival will be humanly impossible. But verse 16 provides some insight into God's motivation for inciting the fight. I can just see God speaking to Russia and quoting the great theologian, Dirty Harry. "Do you feel lucky, punk? Go ahead, make my day." Good. Ezekiel 38:18. And it shall come to pass in that day, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith Adonai Hashem, that my wrath shall come up into my nostrils. Going back a few years, God used Babylon to punish Israel. Yet God punished Babylon because the king had free will to not go against God's people. Likewise, even though this was prophesied, and Russia is merely doing as predicted, God will not be amused with their bad decision. Russia does have the free will to back out. Ezekiel 38, 19 to 20. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there will be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea and the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the field and all creeping things that creep upon the earth and all the men that are on the face of the earth shall shake in my presence, and the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. It sounds like the mere presence of God, or possibly Yeshua, since they are one and the same, will be seen or felt in such a manner as to cause great fear in man, beast, fish, and bug. There are those today who say they can order God around in prayer. Who these people think they are, I have no idea. When God shows up, it is shock and awe. The mere presence of God, or Yeshua, will cause a massive earthquake. Ezekiel 38:21. I will call for a sword against him, unto all my mountains, saith Adonai Hashem. Every man's sword will be against his brother. God's presence, along with the massive earthquake, will cause such fear the coalition will turn their weapons on one another. And with pestilence and with blood will I enter my judgment with him, and I will rain upon him, and upon his hordes, and upon the many peoples that are with him, an overflowing shower, with great hailstones, fire, and brimstone. So if all else is not enough, God will cause a heavy rain upon the attackers. Imagine, if you will, there's just a massive earthquake, fear is rampant, the people are turning their weapons on each other. Now it starts a horrendous rain, making life very uncomfortable. Soon great hailstones will begin falling. The hailstones are enough to injure or kill. But just to make sure, fire and brimstone fall along with the hail. There will be few, if any, survivors among the attackers. Ezekiel 38:23. I will magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will make myself known in the eyes of many nations. They will know that I am Adonai. Amen. Why would God do all of this? So all will know it was God who did it. Amen. All will know He is the one true God. Everyone will get the message. Will they respond properly? Revelation 9:20 and 21. And the rest of mankind who were not killed with these plagues repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship demons and the idols of gold and of silver and of brass and of stone and of wood, which can neither see nor hear nor walk. And they repented not of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. Sound like us here again in the U.S. Is this talking about the attitudes of today?
Yep.
Fornication is not only rampant, but promoted. Murder of the unborn is not only rampant, but promoted. Amen. Sorceries or witchcraft is on the rise and considered by many to be a good thing. Revelation 9, 20, and 21 describes the response of people after a whole lot of bad stuff happened. God will provide the warning, but I suspect the message will not be received and will not bring many people to Yeshua. Along the same token, will people receive the message God is sending in Ezekiel 38? Well, Ezekiel 39 speaks of another war in which Russia is involved. Some people never learn. We began with the Song of Moses and spoke of it being prophetic. It was partly fulfilled with the Babylonian diaspora and return. It is being fulfilled with the last diaspora and return. In days of old, Israel had become prosperous and went to other gods, rejecting the one true God. In modern times, Israel has become prosperous and has become secular, rejecting the one true God. Because of God's obvious intervention, Israel has already prevailed in impossible wars. God had made it clear it was only because of him Israel exists today. There will be more such opportunities for Israel and the rest of the world to turn to God. But there is only one way to turn to God. John 14:6, Yeshua saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one cometh unto the Father but by me. If you're here today or watching on YouTube or Rumble and do not have a personal relationship with Yeshua, please talk to us. If you're watching online, you can get with us through our website, levhashem.org. Thank you.